But really the call is come and live, come and be free. Take up your cross and come and live. Because that's where life is. Life isn't where you think it is. Life isn't off the cross, getting what you want all the time, immediately gratifying yourself, licking your own wounds, self-justifying. It's in finding God when you are empty.
Welcome to 3%. We're your hosts, Jamie Haig.
And I'm Blake Roberts.
We're two best friends, fathers, husbands, and just two guys trying to figure it out.
We're also therapists, which is probably a pretty important part.
That's true.
And we believe that at our best, people are 97% honest with themselves and others. And it's that hidden 3% of emotions, needs, desires, and behaviors that we keep to ourselves that keep us bound to shame and loneliness, from which many of our issues stem.
Each week on this podcast, we'll interview leaders in the fields of psychology, theology, arts, and athletics to explore holistic masculinity. We're not here to tell you the man you need to be, but we are here to help you explore what gets in the way of being the man you want to be.
We're going to help you develop courage and give you the tools to share your 3% in the relationships that matter most, so you can more deeply connect with yourself, God, and others. So, pull up a chair.
Let's get into it.
So let's be honest. Let's be honest. Let's be honest.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 3% podcast, season 2 now. Today we are very excited because we are joined by Jon Guerra, a singer-songwriter known for crafting what I believe he called devotional music, which I don't know, John, if you know of an artist named Scott Erickson, but that has deep vibes of friend of the podcast, Scott Erickson. Songs that feel like intimate prayers set to artful, poetic soundscapes. Originally emerging from Chicago's indie and worship scenes, if any of you have listened to Vertical Worship, and I highly encourage you to go back and listen to Jon's indie stuff, especially with his wife, Valerie. Jon has developed a contemplative style all his own through albums like Keeper of Days and Ordinary Ways. And today we'll probably focus a little more on an album that has meant a lot to me this past year called Jesus. Shout out to my older brother Casey for introducing me to that. Now based in Austin and often collaborating with his wife, Jon creates music that helps listeners slow down, pay attention, and meet God in the ordinary. And we are excited to talk with him today about creativity, faith, masculinity, and the inner life. So Jon, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah. Can't wait for this chat.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. For everybody listening, if you hear a little bit of interestingness in Blake's voice, I'm sure Derek will make it sound amazing somehow. But Blake is at home today because he has the sweetest of babes who is less than a week old, and he's making
at least
time.
at the time of recording this.
Yeah, at least at the time of recording this. Yeah,
like 5 days old, and I'm sitting in her nursery, so no fancy mic set up today.
Yeah, we're recording this.
So if you're annoyed by the audio, just deal with it, because for good reason.
Yeah, if you're annoyed by the audio, you've pushed through some real podcasts in our show. So we're glad you're still here. Well, Jon, I explained a little bit about kind of what 3% is to you, off the air, and with new things, listeners of this show will be familiar with new things. I get incredibly fearful and anxious. I get afraid that things will fail with inadequate evidence to support that claim. And so one of the reasons that I latched on to your music so much is because this new album felt like just singing scripture, and I kind of needed to be washed in that in many ways this year. Especially, I See the Birds was like the first time I listened to it, I thought, okay, was this just written out of my thoughts, or the posture of it, the tone of the melody, it feels like it brought a new perspective to that scripture for me.
Okay.
It's cool.
And my brother was able to go to your show in North Carolina, in Raleigh,
Oh, sweet.
and he told me, I mean, you and Jess Ray, is that right, what the show
Yeah.
was? That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh my
ridiculous,
gosh.
dude.
It was an awesome show.
Yeah. And he told me about a little bit about how you were telling stories of the heart behind this album.
Mm.
And maybe I'm jumping too far ahead too quickly. Where I would like to go is I would like to hear like what was the heart of this album and why? And then maybe we can go back further after that of like, where'd you come from in music? But I want to hear about this album, Jesus, and why this album was important to you.
So a couple of years ago, I kind of had this nagging thought that the person of Jesus had kind of become a caricature in my mind and in my heart. And I'm not exactly sure where that thought came from, but it kind of kept coming up. And I remember I was sitting at my desk, and I sort of had this thought, like, it was sort of this prayer in my head, like, Lord, if that's true, like if I've kind of, basically fashioned my own version of you, and now, and by that I mean Jesus always kind of agreed with me. It's like all my grievances were his grievances, and all of my ideas about politics or who should be doing the dishes or all these things, it's like there was never any, I guess, resistance from what my idea of Christ was. And I sort of had this idea like, man, is this, do I know Jesus anymore? Or is this just kind of somebody that I've used to make myself, to justify myself, to make myself feel superior to other people? Anyway, so I just prayed this prayer in my head, like, God, if that's true, what do I do about that? And I suddenly had this idea, like, oh, well, go meet him again then. Open up the Gospels and see who Jesus is. And so I did that, and I started reading through the Gospels, and then I did it again, and then I did it again, and then I did it in a different translation, and then I started memorizing, and then I have been doing that now for the past, 3 years.
Wow.
And it's still tremendously, there's a gravitational pull for me spiritually in those books. And even when I go to a church that has a lot of scripture in the liturgy, and I just sort of see Jesus everywhere now. And what I found, certainly at first, was that Christ in the Gospels was certainly comforting, but he was also in equal parts challenging. He was who I thought he was in some ways. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. But he's also tremendously mystifying with things that he would say. And it's no wonder the disciples were always confused, and it's no wonder he ultimately got crucified, because when you did finally understand what he was saying, it was the challenge was very clear and large and strong, and it was almost like he's always kind of pushing up against your idea of who he is. Like every time somebody would come up to him in the Gospels, he would resist being put in whatever box they were trying to put him in, even when people were coming in good faith.
Can you give us an example of how that comes to mind, John?
Well, the obvious one is sort of the rich young ruler. He comes and he says, "Teacher, I've since I was a boy, I've followed the law to the best of my ability. He kind of gives his pedigree, and it doesn't sound like he's trying to self-justify. He's really saying, like, what is missing. And I just imagine myself, and so many people I know coming saying, like, I just want more. Like, what else is there? Like, And Jesus saying, he responds kind of with gentleness, and he says, I see that you're good. You're right. Like, you've done well. You're just missing one thing. Okay, what is it? Just sell everything you have and then come follow me.
Mm.
And he makes the bar so stinking high, and it says, and the man went away grieving. The word there in the original language is he went away sad. He went away grieving, like, oh my gosh, what is this? And Jesus would constantly do that. He would constantly almost come up against our own, really make it so that we have to answer the question, what is it you really want? Like, who am I really to you? And the thing is that's actually the medicine, because that is the question that if we don't answer, it's the thing that has us living in a prison, in lies. It has us living kind of these in quiet desperation. I forget who that was, W.H. Auden maybe. Men live lives of quiet desperation until they die, in quiet desperation. I mean, this sort of like, well, what is that? How does that happen? Well, it's because we're very comfortable. It's because we're maybe have this idea of what a full life is that maybe isn't actually where full life is to be found. Because we're constantly managing appearances, and because we haven't really discovered that there's freedom in giving all for Christ. And it's there's the self-surrender, the self-emptying. It's actually where that's actually been a huge thing, I think, about coming to know Christ more these past few years, has been the call ultimately to take up your cross and to follow him. It's a call to self-emptying surrender in every way, shape, and form. And the problem is that when we hear that, we hear come and die and come and suffer. But really the call is come and live, come and be free. Take up your cross and come and live. Because that's where life is. Life isn't where you think it is. Life isn't off the cross, getting what you want all the time, immediately gratifying yourself, licking your own wounds, self-justifying. It's in finding God in your when you were empty, and that really is where the album came from. Frankly, it was kind of a personal. These tunes started coming to my head with all these scriptures that were in my mind. Take up your cross. In the beginning was the Word. And I had enough tunes after a while that I'm like, I think this is probably the next album, because I think this is sort of where my heart is, where my mind is. And yeah, that's where it all came from.
That's beautiful.
No.
I'm going to steal a question from Blake here, but maybe the way that I want us to get the context of this is, could you give us some of the story or stories that would help us understand how you would arrive at the point where you need this kind of reacquaintance with Jesus?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Where was I in life? I think there wasn't anything particularly dramatic. It was sort of like, I try to keep a regular habit of kind of quiet and listening. And, there's always so much happening in our country and in the world, and trying to reckon honestly with what I think about those things. I think politics were starting to ramp up, getting closer to the election, and the temptation in election season feels like becomes 10x to kind of just to become smug in your spirit. Ooh. And to feel superior to the other side, whatever the other side is, and to kind of put your hope into the election. I think we all have positions, and we all should have positions, and we all should care about what happens where we live, But when that gets to the level of superiority or ruining your day when you hear about something, or just almost the self-satisfied smugness. I'm not sure how else to put it. There's, but I really was noticing that in myself, and it was not. It just smelled rotten. I don't know. It just felt rotten to me, and you know, I have a 6-year-old, and back then she was 4. Um, I think it was the middle of the summer, so it was a lot of home time, a lot of caretaking time, a lot of like, well, who gets time alone today? You know, between my wife and I, there's those conversations of whose time, you know, who's doing what. And the greatest thing, I mean, I really, this is no hyperbole. It sort of feels like the thing I love the most is being a dad. And so I love spending time with my kids. I mean, I would rather do that than almost anything. But even as any, you know, good parent knows, everybody needs a break sometimes. And, you know, when you're sleepless and you're tired and my goodness, how many more dishes can I do in one day? I just cleaned this. How is this already messy? I mean, the whole thing just adds up after a while. And then you start to, you know, be like, God, would you please, I don't know, like, how can this be? I don't know. You start to kind of, when you invite God into those places, it can get kind of interesting, right? It can get a little bit, and I was trying to, you know, as a songwriter, but as a person, I try to, you know, I very much believe in bringing God and prayer into the everyday moments of life, in the nitty gritty. And so that's something that I always try to do. And I think it was that, man. I think it was just, you know, small kids, politics, money stresses, you know, kind of, my parents are getting older. I'm a songwriter for a living, and it's a ministry. So it's like, you know, ministry already isn't like a very lucrative thing. And then it's a niche of a niche musically. So not a lot of money in the niche of my niche. I feel so blessed that I can do it, and I'm not complaining at all, but it is not like even when things do well, it's just like, you know, breaking even. And so we're, you know, what shirt design do we think is going to, it's like I'm a t-shirt salesman half the time to pay the bill. So it's like, yeah, all these things, you know, you get to a point where you're sort of like, what, you know, Lord, what is my light, you know? And I think I was there and feeling just a little bit like pity party. I mean, that's maybe that's being too hard on myself. It was legitimately like, oh man, like life is just hard, you know, as it is, I think, for most people in our stage of life, and really any, but certainly when you have small kids, when you're growing in your job or career, aging parents. My wife and I married over 10 years. I mean, I love her to death, but you come into these things, you're like, all right, we got to work some of these things out. You know, we got to look at these things honestly. This marriage isn't going to live itself or grow itself into what we want it to grow into. So we have to look at it. And I think all that made me kind of like, where is Christ in this? Well, it seems that Christ is always on my side and is always kind of pitying me and always like, but that, no, God, like where is the way? Like, where's the light here? Where are the rivers of living water? I want those. And so give me those. And in that, kind of go into the Gospels and realize, oh, man, his call to me isn't like, come here and let me console you. Like, it is a little bit of that. I mean, it really is. I mean, we need the consolation of the Holy Spirit. It's to say, God of all comforts, who comforts us in every affliction, so that we can comfort those who need comfort. I mean, there's very much about the Spirit being with us. And that was very, very much true. And I think it was the Spirit who drew me to the Gospels to hear then the Lord saying, take up your cross. You know, you have not resisted to the point of shedding blood. You know, if the eye is healthy, then the whole body will be full of light. What are you focusing on here? Where your treasure is, there your heart's going to be. Look at the birds of the field, John. Look at the lilies of the field. I know you're anxious, but don't be. Like, well, what do you mean don't be? How do I not be? You know?
Yes.
And so just taking those things, I think, to Jesus is kind of, I think, what was the greatest thing. And I'm not saying those things are gone, but those things are now in the context of, I think, hopefully an increasingly abiding relationship with the Lord, in which, whether it's questions about money or questions about the world or politics or, lifelong partnership with the woman you love or parent, whatever it is, it's now in the context of discipleship, as it always should be and always probably has been, but in a more conscious way, I think, where I'm,
Yeah.
I want my heart to be, I want my treasure to be in Christ. I want my treasure to be, I want to rejoice because my name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, not because I have money in the bank or something.
Hey, we want to pause real quick and let you know about something. We know a lot of you don't just want more content. You want connection, you want practice, you want tools, you want depth. And that's why we created The Basement. It's our private community for anyone who's ready to go beyond surface level and actually engage their emotional lives. So every month we release a deep dive Q&A episode that's only available inside the community. We answer real questions from real listeners in a more intentional way than we do on our regular feed. We also share guided reflections and practical tools to actually help you apply this stuff. And you'll be connected to other people who are doing the work too.
It's $10 a month or $100 for the year, and you can cancel anytime. And honestly, even if you've been listening to our podcast for a while and you're not sure how much you'd use The Basement, becoming a member is still a great way to support what we're building. It helps us create more spaces, more conversations, and more resources for anyone who wants and needs them. So check out the link that will be in the show notes. If you're ready for more than just listening, come join us in The Basement. Man, I appreciate all of that so much. I think you probably just related to every person in our audience somehow with one of the places in life you are right now. Has to hit with everyone who listens somehow.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's amazing about it, is like, you were like, it was nothing major, and then you listed all of these major key identity pieces to who we are.
But all those things are constitutive of just every moment in daily life, right?
Yeah.
It's like it, and maybe that's it, man. Maybe it is. Maybe it is major because it is our life. It's like how we spend our days, or how we spend our lives. So,
yeah. Well, and the fact that he can know every hair on our head suggests that the things that are important to us are important to him. But to your point, the act of full surrender is the freedom that he wants for us. Like the come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, because my burden is light, is talking about how, like, I know everything about you, and just like a father to his child, making every moment large because it feels large to you, I imagine God's voice to me. I hope God's heart towards me is that these things that feel enormous to you are enormous to me, and that's why they feel enormous to you, because you're a reflection of my heart. But I also hold all of that, again, going back to our buddy Scott, who we mentioned earlier. He has this painting or this piece of art that I have shown before, where it's like, it's a picture of God's hands holding a body of water with a boat in it, but the entire body of water is held in God's hands. Mm-hmm. And so it's cool. The idea that, like God cares about the everyday so much, but the chaos that water feels like to us, is something that's so held to him, right, that he knows the depths of and the breadth of. We've had this real theme of gardening this year. I've had a real theme of gardening in my life. Felt like that's an identity that God has spoken over me this year, even though, like, I'm for sure never have been a gardener, not super into it.
Nice.
Not yet. And although I think they're all alternative meanings, you know. And Justin Whitmel early came on the show and talked about how, like, to your point, it's a grace that Christ is extending, like that. Come to me, I want to comfort you. And it's a calling that to garden, to cultivate, we want it to be this place of beauty and rest. And it is. And gardens don't happen without cultivation. There is action that needs to take place for the continual growth and flourishing of that garden.
Yeah, right.
And it sounds like that's some of what you were getting at, or at least that's what I'm hearing you were getting at with some of this album. And as you were talking about it, I'm hearing all the songs as you're mentioning the verses that you're stating, and I'm like, yeah, I hear that, where it's an embrace and a move forward at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an embrace. It's a, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Begs the question, well, what is the burden? What is the burden? Well, the burden is the cross, right? It doesn't sound very light, but it's actually in taking up the cross that the burden becomes light. It's not before that. It's kind of this, sort of like God multiplies somehow. It's like the fish and the loaves. He multiplies, it seems, our strength, maybe our capacity. I think we sort of need also, we need resistance. We need that call to be something bigger than seems possible. I don't think there's growth that happens any other way. Occasionally, it's always nice to feel like you're swimming in squarely in your competence zone, But my wife is a therapist, and she always talks about the zone of mild to moderate stress is the zone of growth and the zone of thriving. So it's like, if it's moderate to extreme stress for an extended period of time, that becomes trauma. If it's mild to no stress for an extended period of time, that becomes like meaninglessness. But it's mild to moderate stress. That's the zone of like, I'm doing it. I'm alive. My life has meaning. I'm pushing against something. I feel like I have agency in the world. And I think the same is true spiritually. I think it's very easy to kind of live in that mild to no stress zone. And then we wonder, like, man, where's God? Or where's my, gosh, I've got these weeds in my soul. Like, what is that? I think gardening is perfect. That metaphor of, there's always things shooting up, and it's a living plot inside of us, out of which grow thorns and out of which grow fruitful things. And yeah, I the other thing is, ultimately, the past few years, what I've come to, realize, and I'm certainly not there yet, but I realize it intellectually more and more, and I feel it more and more, is that the treasure is Christ himself. The treasure is not some kind of anxiety-free or stress-free or difficulty-free life. It's proximity and contact with the invisible but very living presence of Jesus. And that contact and the belief and the faith in you that contact is real, and that you're not only being held, but he's in the boat with you, that is kind of a treasure that, I think that's the treasure that creates martyrs. That's the treasure that has sustained the church for a couple thousand years. And that's the treasure that then when we die, we realize in full is the presence and proximity of Christ. so that when we see him face to face, it's not like we're meeting a stranger. It's like we're meeting a friend. And that, yeah.
Blake, I haven't even let you ask a question yet, but
It's okay. I'm just soaking all this in. And I'm 5
yeah.
days,
Yeah, man.
I'm just here. I'm very much here. I really am soaking all of it in, but
yeah, but you are just here.
I'm also just here.
Yeah. So, it's really cool to hear that your wife is a therapist. Obviously,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
As two therapists, we get pretty stoked on that.
Yeah.
A big part of my story, 30,000 feet, is that I was abused by a youth pastor for 8 years, from 11 to 19. And so when let me preface this way. I agree with you on what you just said, that the treasure is Christ himself. And I think I would like that to be, if I were listening to this podcast 10 years ago, I would turn it off. And I'd be like, that doesn't make any sense to me. That actually kind of sounds familiar to what other people have told me to get me to like try harder, do more, that kind of thing. And now I have a very hard fought reason that matters to me, and I agree. But I would kind of like to hear, what does it mean functionally for Christ to be the real treasure? Why have you found that? How can we speak to the heart of someone who's listening to this? We have a lot of people who listen to this who have been hurt by the church and are not necessarily coming to this podcast going like, let's agree with all of what we hear about faith as we come into this podcast. More so like, I'm not trying to get us to be a necessarily like, boy, this is going to sound Christianese. I'm not trying to get us to be like a seeker-friendly podcast. What I am trying to do is meet people where they are. And I think you just met me where I am now, 9 years into healing. And I'm trying to dial that back a few years and go, what would it be like for me to have heard us say that Christ is the real treasure? I want to know, like, what is that? What in the world does that mean? And
Good question.
How do we get there?
I mean, I'll certainly take a shot. So, let's start from here. Fundamental premise of Christianity is something called metaphysical realism, which means that the physical world isn't all that exists, right? The spiritual world is as real as tables and chairs. And we exist in both planes. We exist at the intersection of both planes. We exist at the intersection. We are both material creatures, with bodies and feelings. The feelings are also kind of on the intersection of those two planes. But we're also spirits. We're minds. A lot of what makes life worth living is intangible, like love. And we would all agree that love is important and love is real. Blake, you have a new geyser of love inside of you because of the baby you just had. It's wild how that happens.
Yeah.
But our world is engineered to make us not believe that and to make us live on the material plane and to be creatures of appetite and creatures of self-gratification and creatures of coercion and domination. And Christianity says there is an entire other world that you belong to that is kind of the source of both all the bright things in the world and all the dark things in the world. And if we don't recognize that, then we end up trying to solve for circumstances or effects and not root causes. And so the same things end up happening over and over because the roots haven't been affected. And so, then Christ comes along, and God, joins the material world. God is spirit. So God is not a material thing until Jesus comes. Suddenly God is now a material. He's also half God, he's also half spirit. But there then became this possibility of us who were kind of bound to the material way of living. Writer Simone Weil calls it the kingdom of gravity, the kingdom of this world. The only way through is the cross, because that's the way that Jesus opened. It was through the cross. And so we follow him through self-emptying surrender. We follow him through that into our eyes getting opened, into an awareness of life and the world, and an awareness of distinctions of value that are not material. So to say, when Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor," he's coming from a framework of value that is not the framework of the world that we live in. The poor are not blessed from the perspective of this world. They're, in fact, poor. That's what we, that term automatically is like, oh, poor you, Jesus is saying, no, they're blessed. There's a different framework that I'm working from. And the invitation from Jesus is to live and abide and be washed in and see through that framework. It's sight through that framework. And the more and more that reality is born in us, that spiritual reality begins to permeate us, the distinctions of value change. And you begin to recognize, actually, it is better to give than it is to receive. Actually, I would rather actually be live a life of goodness and love than I would want to live a life of like satiating all my appetites at all times and ruining my relationships. You're right, that is actually what I want. And you start to recognize those things. And there's certain things that the world recognizes that are good, hierarchies of values and all that, but you then maybe go all the way to the end. On one side, the church has this whole tradition of saints and, whatever we think of those terms. But there's some people who are just kind of shot through with light, who are just radiant. I mean, I think Mr. Rogers was one of those people. I think Mother Teresa, obviously these are extreme. But we know people who have glimmers of this, and each of us have glimmers of this. And you start to realize, oh, actually I want that. And you realize, oh goodness, well, Christ is that. Christ is that ultimate being shot through with light, permeated with love and grace and goodness, kind of this never-ending flow of beauty into the world, over and against death and wickedness coming at him. That's tremendously beautiful. You start to want that. I mean, I think, I think even many films, it's like this is exalted. At least maybe old films. These days, it's all about kind of power and glory and whatever. But when I say that Christ is the treasure, I mean that goodness, that beauty, that goodness, that beauty, that radiance is calling towards you and saying, come and take part in this radiance. I want to shoot you. I want to shoot through you into the world, the grace and the love. Like, I want you to become this thing, this kind of mirror of my grace and love and goodness. And the possibility of that is tremendous. I mean, that's just insane. The possibilities of what it is to be a human creature is insane. If anybody were to say, hey, I want to give you $50 million, I want to give you that, and it's yours to spend, but I want you to spend it blessing the world. That would be an amazing, you'd be like, really? Like, whoa, incredible. And, but that's still even like commodifying the relationship even more. It's like somehow if the proximity to this person gave you the ability to then create that kind of wealth. I don't know. It's hard to, but identifying that you have, not only discovered this portal through the darkness of the world, but also have become this funnel through which light pours in. It is foolishness to the world, I admit. It really is, from one perspective. But I think when you've glimpsed the reality of it, it's sort of like how could there be anything better? So that's as best as I can do.
That's pretty good.
I felt very drawn into that, invited into that. Yeah, I don't know what other words I have right now.
I mean, and I hope it sounds like a gift, because you're right. I mean, the human capacity to hear invitations as law, this kind of, oh, this is something, another framework for you to fail at, is so, we are just like prodigious at turning things into things that we're bad at. I know I certainly am. And so but there really is, I love when Dallas Willard, he says, forgiveness of sins is easy for God. We hide because we think it's so hard for him. He's like, no. Saints burn grace like jets burn jet fuel. Like it takes more grace to live a life of freedom and life and light and to kind of, there's actually more grace in that than to come and say, actually, this is who I am. This is what I've done. These are my flaws. That's so easy for God. He's so willing to do that. And he's so ready to do that. And you don't realize that, though, until you kind of experience it almost through the eyes and through the countenance and the presence of another person saying, I see you. It's okay. Let's move forward together, And the power of that, I think, is tremendous. And then beyond that, you start to realize, oh, this is the treasure, right? Just living in freedom in the presence of another person. And goodness, there's another person that is even present when I'm alone.
Yeah.
And that's even present when I'm suffering. And that's even present when I'm dying. And that's even present when have suffered these horrific things. And it sort of, I only feel I've earned the right to say this to a degree, right? Like I haven't lost a child. There's certain things that I do think it's irresponsible to almost, some people are called to speak into those places. I feel I'm called to speak up to the point that I have experienced, which is, as a middle-aged dad, I have my own history with my own family of origin. You've got your history, Jamie, with your, and so we have certain authority given, I think, because of those things. And, I'm saying there is an abiding presence in those dark places. And it's, I have yet to go to one of those places that I've been so scared to go. I've yet to go there and not find God waiting for me there.
Yeah. Boy, succinctly, that's a pretty, I think there's two things you just did there. You gave a really expansive, beautiful answer to what I said, and then you just gave a very succinct one. That is, as I go to those dark places that every part of me doesn't want to take me to, and I'll incorporate me, because in my case, no safety was modeled in faith or spaces that were supposed to exude who God is. So this Christ who is supposed to be this safe place for me, that is supposed to have a burden that is light, never had that for me. And so while I was so scared to take myself into those places, when I did, that the freedom was on the other side of that obedience, like you were saying. The freedom was on the other side of taking up that cross. Not freedom and then, okay, out of my freedom, I'll take up that cross. It's like taking up that cross on the other side of it. That's really what 3% has been for me, why it's healed so many relationships for me. And this is something that Blake and I are even talking about at a spiritual abuse conference, is like, why does relationship heal spiritual abuse wounds? And I think you just named it. It's because as I give myself away to the hands and feet of Jesus in my life, then I get to experience the hands and feet of Jesus in my life. And so I give away that 3% to Blake, and suddenly I get to experience what you just gave beautiful language to, which is the light of Christ shining through Blake to me. And suddenly those wounded parts of me that were so destroyed by who I was abused to believe Christ was get reparented by the beauty of who Christ is, but only on the other side of me carrying my cross in full surrender, to giving away those parts of me that I think make me rejectable, or only make me rejectable, not the parts of me that are like, oh, if you can look past this, I'll be acceptable. The parts of me that I'm like, the only possible outcome of me giving this to you is that you will reject me. Those darkest places, like you said, God was there.
Yeah.
Boy, we need to land this plane.
Before you land it,
yeah.
I'm very encouraged, and like even just personally, this was very timely for me. To
Oh man.
I feel like the light is shining through you to me in specific ways right now, and just even some things I wrote down. Like I was even just going through some, Jamie knows, some stuff. I'll just leave it at that right now. And proximity to Christ is for various reasons, like with my story historically, but also just like you just named, the parts of me that don't want to go there. Proximity with Christ is not what I have been leaning into or like looking for as much as proximity to, we kind of joked about it, but like before recording, as much as proximity to things that distract me from the parts of me that are afraid of the proximity of Christ, because it's kind of like what you're talking about, like to experience the treasure, the proximity of Christ in these places where I don't want to, like that, even just the thought of that, receiving that type of love is in a way scary, because it's not like the promise is it's a type of love that that I will not fully experience, even by my closest people, that the light is shining through them. And so I was even before we recorded today, texting my spiritual director / mentor about just some anger that I have with God right now, and he didn't use the word proximity, but he might as well have. Like it sounds like I was like trying to I don't know what I was trying to do, but all I'm trying to say is the invitation to the closeness, and then the other thing you kept saying is the self-emptying surrender as a sort of pathway to the proximity is, you just have laid that invitation out in a way that is very welcoming.
So glad.
Yeah.
Not since we were talking about the Jesus album earlier, if there's a song on the record that kind of, to me, embodies everything we've been talking about, it's a song called Gethsemane.
Okay.
Which, it's one of the less accessible songs on the album, but it's the one that I'm probably most proud of, just as a writer and as an artist. It basically, the song is written from the perspective of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And it starts out, Gethsemane, Garden of Grief, is the first line. And then the last line is Gethsemane, Garden of Light. And the whole song goes kind of through the story of Christ, and it changes keys and it gets very tense in the middle, and then it blows up into this thing, and then ends with this kind of hopefully with this light, to kind of illustrate that, I think that the lesson and the invitation and the thing we're always having to learn is consent to the will of God, and I don't mean the will of God in some large, like, sending me to Africa or whatever. I mean consent to the will of God in your nursery with your 5-day-old baby. I'm so with you, man. Like, oh gosh, there were so many, trying to give my wife sleep, and so I'm doing the night shift for the weeks, that I was doing. It was like, that's consent to the will of God, and it's, oh, but I've got to go tour, and I've got, and it's in those moments, though. It's in those moments that I feel like that's when the invitation is most clear. And frankly, just turning my attention in those moments to, like, I really felt like Christ was with me holding that little baby who, and there's really nothing, there's nothing like that. And that's light. Even, it was literally dark in the house when that was happening, but it's like, oh, this is kind of a garden of light, this is it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's like the proximity isn't actually something that I have to do more or like go out and get. Like the proximity is already there. I just need to pay attention to it.
yeah, it's paying attention. Yeah. Yeah, when the eye is healthy, the whole body is full of light,
Yep,
It's
I wrote
being
that
able
down
to
too.
see, which is a wild thing. It's in the context of Jesus saying, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And then he switches to, if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. And then he says, those who are born of the Spirit, the wind blows where it wishes. Those who are born of the Spirit, you don't know where it's coming from, where it's going. It's like he's just going poof, poof, poof. It's like the most beautifully mystical. I mean, as an artist, I'm just like, this is like all of my senses are kind of. But what I've kind of taken that to mean is you begin to see things for what they are. Like, light helps you see things for what they are.
Yeah.
So if I'm groping around in the dark, I can maybe feel something and, oh, is that a tree or is that a stick? But when the light turns on, I could see, I could see a tree. Oh, it's a tree. I can see, a house. Oh, that's a house. I can see $1 and I don't see security. I see $1 that can buy me whatever. I mean, a pack of gum. Now gum is probably 3 times that, but whatever. It's like, I see $1 and I see it for what it is.
Yeah.
So it's like you're able, it's like with that sight, you can see,
That's
nourishing
beautiful.
this baby, helping my wife sleep at this hour when I have these things. This is actually not weakness. This is strength. This is winning. This is, this is precisely what I should be doing right now. Again, it's easier said than done. I failed.
Yeah, no.
No,
more
you
than
have
I
not.
care to admit, but
Oh, man.
no, I mean just in the practice of it.
Oh
gosh,
okay.
Yeah.
I was
you know what I
like,
mean? Just the practice of like,
yes.
I would want to do that in a saintly way, and Lord knows, even last night I was just kind of griping it like under my breath, like, dude, why so many dick? Can't we just bust while we eat? Whatever it is. I'm just like, but
What a gift
just
to us
try
to be
to enjoy.
honest about our failures of it, though.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something that I hope at some point we can have you back and talk to you about, because I think what just hit both Blake and I as we were talking to our friend Connor not too long ago about how the story of Gethsemane and like how Christ had to grieve first before he goes to the cross, how he had to like empty out from the grief before he could take on what the journey to the cross meant, and how much beauty that is, and shows the purpose of grieving, the holy purpose of grieving for us. And yeah, I just feel like there's a lot in your music that I derailed us from talking about today that I would love to come back around because we didn't even get to talk about like the posture of I see the birds and why I hope people will. Here's what my call to action for the listeners of this podcast would be. I use your music often as a way to do a form of breath prayer and grounding between my sessions. And I would encourage everybody, we have given our listeners a 4-step process to
managing emotions.
regulating emotions. And it goes pause, pray, process, express. I would encourage everybody who's listening, if you need something that combines your pause and prayer, go get any of his albums, but this year for me it's been the Jesus album, and just find a song that's speaking to where you are now. And it's what you need. It's the time you need. It's the pause you need. It's the invitation to God that you need to help you start that journey towards regulating and then processing your emotions. And then we will just have to have you back so that we can talk more about the why of some of those specific tunes. Yeah.
I would love it.
Well,
Yeah, I'm gonna go listen to Gethsemane and probably cry, and then I'll tell you about it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, please do, man.
That sounds good. Well, Jon, thank you so much, man. And
Absolutely.
is there
Thanks for
anything
having me.
else that you want people to be looking out for? How can people find you?
Yeah, just listening to the music is always great. Under my name, Jon Guerra, JonGuerra. I've been on tour all year. It's a little bit less, touring a little bit less next year, but I'll still be on the road, going out with a guy named Andy Squires. Really excited about that, and an artist named Delaney Young on this thing called the Invisible Things Tour. And hopefully writing new music. You could, as you're listening, if you could just shoot up a prayer, like, Lord, help Jon write more songs. I'm feeling a bit uninspired at the moment, but yeah, that's it. And there's lots of merch that, frankly, it's like, if you want to, the whole point of what I'm doing is that people would listen and that people would pray the way you're using it. That's kind of the whole point. If you're like, man, I want to help this guy pay his bill, go buy a t-shirt or vinyl or something,
Yes. Done.
Just FYI.
I was about to say, if you didn't, hey, go buy Jon's merch, because that really is, that's the real win, right? I haven't mentioned this to you. Prior to being a therapist, I was a musician, and I know the pains of trying to financially support a musical career. I ended up creating another side career that I said was to support my music habit.
Totally. That's great. Yep.
So go buy the shirts. I'll be buying a vinyl.
Yes.
Very thankful
Same.
for you, Jon, and we look forward to having you back again.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
It's a real
And
pleasure.
to everybody listening, we're glad you're here. Keep showing up. You're worth it.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode. Listen, we're working on some really practical resources to help you connect more deeply with yourself and others. So if you head over to our website, 3percentco.com, you can learn more about that. The link will be in the show notes. And this is the part of the show where we ask you for some help. Listen, we don't have a big fancy production team. We're recording these in my therapy office in between sessions and in the margins of our life. We just really believe in the message that much. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and rarely would I take the time to review and rate a show, just because honestly, I forgot. It wasn't until we started doing this show that I realized doing that actually really does help these platforms notice our show and get the word out. And so if any of this is impactful to you, we would love it if you took a second to leave us a review, rate us, or if you want to just do it the old-fashioned way, text this link to a friend and say, hey, let's talk about this episode. Whatever you do, make sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening to so you never miss an episode. We're really grateful you're here, and we'll see you next week.
So let's be honest.